For 11.5, we're supposed to complete the views necessary to describe a half section of the object. We've been doing full sections this far, which is where you cut the object in half, remove it, and draw what that inside interior details looks like. This time we're only going to draw a quarter removed, because remember, a half section shows you both the outside and the inside simultaneously. We will need to refer to the problem 11.5 in the text. We're drawing a cutting plane line, object lines, section lines, and then we're also going to dimension the drawing. So in the book, we're referring to this page right here, 268. You have to look at the grid, and each grid is a ½ inch. For this exercise, we're looking at the grinding wheel, and it's actually reversed, which I've put right next to the challenge so you can see it up close. Now, the grid is a ½ inch, so we're going to have to count that in order to understand what depth dimensions are there. The height, we can count out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if the grid is ½ inch and we have 8 boxes, we know that this diameter is 4. So looking at this grid, we know that each box represents 1/2 inch. So if this is really a cylinder that we're seeing from the side, let's first figure out this overall diameter. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes. So if they're each ½ inch, that means that this diameter is going to be 4. Then let's figure out this other diameter. So you can see there's a notch that comes in, which is really a hole. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 boxes divided by 2, that's going to be really 3-inch diameter. But you can see it only comes back so far. So we can also use the grid to figure out the depth, because remember, in right side view, we have height and depth. The overall depth, if we count out 2 boxes, well, we know that's 1 inch. Then we know this is ½ inch. But what is this little section? Well, it's ½ and ½, so we know that this hole comes in 1/4 inch. Let's put it right there for now. Then at the back of this larger circle, that's 3-inch diameter that comes in 0.25, there's a small hole that continues on until the back. So let's try to figure out the diameter of this hole. If each box is ½ inch, ½ of a half, let me undo that. This would be 1/4, so 0.25, and this must be 1/8. So this would be 3/8 from the middle line, so 3/8 plus another 3/8 to this side. If it's 3/8 from the middle to the outside, we know that the overall diameter of this section is 6/8, which simplifies down into 3/4, so 0.75. And that's how you can figure out the dimensions. Now this angle, we don't actually need to figure out the angle. All we need to figure out is that this diameter comes back 0.5, and then another 0.5 inches back, we need to figure out this diameter. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to skip this and say I'm not going to measure it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to project it from the right side view because it's already printed on the page. And then when I dimension it on the paper, I'll measure it with my ruler. And that will give me a little bit more accurate result. So let's come back to the drawing. So, describe a half section. Which half do we actually cut out? Well, I could either cut out this chunk here, this quarter, or I could cut out this bottom quarter. It's really up to you. It'll just determine what you're actually seeing the inside of, the top or bottom in this view. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the top. So my cutting plane is going to look like this. It's going to come from the middle. I'm going to do a long dash, short dash, long dash, come 3/8 out of the circle, and then I'm also going to draw over this center line that's currently drawn and make it thicker. So long dash, short dash, and come outside the circle. Just want your lines to be nice and bold so they're not mistaken for other line conventions. Now, when you do the arrow, you're only gonna have one arrow because what you have is when you're looking in a section view, you wanna point the arrow in the way that the section view is facing. So if we're removing what's to the right of this, you want the arrows to face this way so that when we flip it over to our right side view, we're showing that, oh, I get the projection now. So the arrow will face this direction, and I'll just put the arrowhead in a while. So I'm using my number 2 pencil to make my cutting plane line because it's thicker, but now I'm going to switch back to my 2H lead for all my other line conventions. So now I know where my cutting plane is. I'm going to pretend this is removed. So that's what I'm going to see in here. However, before I start doing section lines, we need to draw what would have normally been hidden lines. A rule of thumb with section views, though, is when you have a section view, the whole point is to show hidden geometry. So I'm going to not draw the hidden lines in the bottom half and just draw them as visible object lines because now that we're cutting into the object, we can see those. So this hole, if we refer back to the image, I'll throw it up here. This first hole comes into the part 1/4 of an inch. So we're gonna have to measure as we project. That diameter comes down all the way here, but I'm going to stop at the section line. This hidden line represents this back corner because I can't see it even if there is a section view, because really it's just an edge where those diameters shift into a larger diameter and it has an angled plane. So that doesn't need to be depicted here because it's really just this profile. However, this diameter is a hole where I would see the top of that hole come all the way through from the back of this surface. So I'm seeing this as negative space to here. So that means as I cut through this part of the right side view, the section view, this is the solid mass. So this is what's going to get sectioned. However, down here, we're not going to show any of this, and I'm not even going to draw the hidden lines. What I'm going to do instead is realize, oh, this diameter shifts, creating an edge that would wrap around. So this would normally have an object line coming all the way through, but since I only have half of the exterior view and half the interior view, my object line is going to come from the bottom and stop at the center. So this is the object line. Now I'm ready for my section lines. So I need my 45 triangle and my Ames lettering guide. I'm going to position it in a way where I can hopefully do this in just one motion. Make sure my T-square is perpendicular and my T-square and my triangle is tight, and now I'm ready to go. Make sure you only section what solid material is getting cut. All right, now I need to dimension and label my views. I'm going to first start with dimensioning and get all of these diameters out of the way. So I said you could dimension the heights of these, and that would be correct. I'm going to just try to simplify this and do all the diameters in circular view. Make sure your leaders point towards the center of the diameter you're referencing, but make sure they're at least 15 degrees. They come out past the part 3/8. And technically you're not supposed to dimension to hidden geometry, so that circle would really be off the back, and I'll show you what that would look like. Make sure your first dimension is 3/8 off the part. So when dimensioning a diameter in a side view, you want to make sure your diameter symbol is still there, and then it points to the top and bottom or left and right of that cylinder. Like so. Now I need to do the depth dimensions. So from left to right, I'm going to extend up off the front surface and use that as a baseline, as my datum. And it looks like I have 0.25, 0.5, and 1. So I have 3 dimensions. Extend up, I'm not sure how tall yet, but then I'm going to draw right into this part. And it should come up 3/8 away. Next one should go 3/8 plus 1/4. And then this one should go up 1/4 past the last one. So I can map those out like this. 3/8, 1/4, 1/4. Now in a small area like this, you're going to have to point your arrows in and even keep your dimensions on the outside. Remember your different ways to apply dimensions. So I'm going to point the arrow in from both directions. I'll probably put my number or actual dimension from the outs on the left. I'm going to do the same thing for this next one, just to keep it consistent. And then the last one I'll actually do normally. So I'll place my arrows next before my numbers so I know where I'm going to have room. And I'm actually going to work right to left now just so I can keep my dimensions tight. So I'll say this is going to be 0.25, but I'll start with the 5, and then go to the 2, and then go to the decimal. For this one, I'm going to put the number on the inside of the arrows, so it's 0.5. So put it right in the center of those. And then the last one is 1. Make sure your decimals are there. So lastly, I need to label my section views. So the cutting plane line gets labeled A, and this is going to get labeled section AA. Your label should be 3/8 away from the part. So lastly, reread your directions, complete the views necessary, describe half section, got it. Draw a cutting plane line, object lines, and section lines as needed. Dimension the drawing, and now I'm going to look over all of my dimensions to make sure I have everything. I have this diameter, I have that diameter over here, this one. I'm going to work my way left to right. I have this dimension, I have this dimension up here, and I have my overall depth 1. So 11.5 is complete.